Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is a Rhythm Master new game walkthrough for Hi-Fi Rush, played on the PC. And this is the first track. As you can see there from the description, rhythm timing is super tight, damage and stun are very high. And if your rank drops to a D, you instantly die. Which changes kind of everything, but only in a few instances. If you're anything like me, guys, that probably doesn't sound like a good thing. It sounds a little bit like New York Minute from Max Payne. It's not. Most encounters, you will have no issue keeping your style up as long as you're attacking something. The only area where it got me off guard was against the boss fights, because the boss fights, sometimes you have to respect them a bit more than you do the enemies, and during that time of respect, you can die. But here is your first encounter, and sadly, not only does the tutorial take up a lot of the screen, but you don't have access to any of your beat hits or any of your majestic tools from playing the game. So you're kind of on your own here. And it's a little bit awkward to get used to not having the chain, not having all the different moves and the tools. The biggest thing for me was not having the parry. The start of the game, of course, we're going to be acquiring the moves as you do on an average casual playthrough. But we're doing it on the hardest difficulty that exists. So we get punished in the hardest way, the harshest way, and we don't have all the tools to enable us to overcome it. But at the start here, they're introducing you to the basic combos. If you've never played this game before, this game is all about attacking on the beat. And if you attack on the beat, you will keep your combo going and get more points, which is really handy for staying alive and getting better scores. But additionally, when you attack an enemy, you essentially become the metronome. So when you start attacking, it becomes quite easy to keep that beat going because you are the arbiter of it. But when you go to the next enemy, you want to try and attack on beat when you start fighting them, because then you'll get into the habit of constantly being in time, and then it'll just help you get some of the higher scores. The cool thing about this difficulty is you don't really need to be a score wizard, you don't need to be the best at it to be successful. As long as you're on time, a little bit, as long as you're doing the right things and you're mixing up your moves and you're using your tools, you should be okay. And I think most people who engage with this are probably going to do so with all of the equipment like you would in a Devil May Cry. And that's definitely the best way to do it. Because right now, as it stands, if I get hit by most things, I'll probably die. And there are a couple of moves that don't do too much damage if you get hit right, but if you get hit by any of the big stuff, it's game over, especially the larger enemies. Fortunately, there are a lot of tools in this game that enable us to stop that from happening. But you'll notice in the world of Hi-Fi Rush that everything is undulating. Everything is bopping along to the beat in the background here. And all of this is meant to be able to keep you in time. It's meant to get you connected to the rhythm and the sense of when you should press the buttons. Do not despair and do not, get frustrated if you don't immediately click with the game. This game has a learning curve, and we don't see that too often anymore. And it definitely breaks your brain a little bit. And not only do I play rhythm games, I play a lot of Clone Hero or Guitar Hero as you might know it, but I also play a lot of action games. So I have history in both, and I was able to pick it up quite quickly, but even my brain gets broken all the time as well. So if you just can't stay on the beat and if you keep getting bad ranks and stuff, don't worry. Eventually, it starts to make more sense. And if you're forgetting what to do and if, you're good and then you start fighting and then your timing goes to shit, all of this it's about muscle memory, it's about reflex, it's about learning, it's about conditioning. And you'll get there. And the whole game works like this too. So if it's not something that you're interested in, it might not be the game for you. But at the same time, you can still play this game without any of the rhythm that's happening in it. You might not have the most fun and you might not be the most successful, but it's so colourful and it's so enjoyable and the whole damn thing is so charming that you might have a great time anyway. But it's really important here, guys, to get as much money as we can. So I'm going to be breaking everything I come across to try and get more of the gears. Because I have no abilities, I have no combos, I have no special moves, I have nothing. I'm not going to be prioritising anything like health upgrades. I might get a little bit more reverb. I'm not going to be messing too much with the specials because the one that they give you is pretty decent. But there's a few things I've been thinking about as I path my way through the game. The first one will be I want to get the 808 cat move, which is the most powerful move in the game. And I want that just so I can make the final boss a little bit quicker, because the final boss is incredibly demanding. And if I'm going to make a walkthrough to make it easier for you, I'm going to show you the thing I did to make him easier for me. And that is what that is. And this right here, guys, I think is a health upgrade. So you'll notice I'm a little bit conflicted. Because if it was for reverb, I would have grabbed it. But I couldn't remember which was which, and then it occurred to me the reverbs are the bulbs. They're like the light bulb. So that, of course, is an upgrade on your HP. But in between encounters, you can use this as an opportunity to practice your dash and practice keeping on time. And the game has really, really good feedback for telling you that you're on time, because not only will you get there's a graphic that pops up with an exclamation point, but there's also an audio trigger of somebody either doing a woo or a hey, and it tells you that you're hitting at the right time you need to be hitting. And the game calls this a just timing. And now when we get to the helipad, which is one of my favourite areas in the game, this is where they introduce the beat hit, which is this here. And the beat hit is your big ender. All you have to do is press the button as those two circles overlap, and depending on your timing will depend on whether or not you get the good or the perfect. And how the game works, folks, is Chai's damage. I don't know if it affects his stun, it might do, but the closer you are to just timing on your rhythm, the more damage you do. And you want to always be working towards doing it, because it's just how the game's meant to be played, and you'll also get better ranks for doing it too. The one area where you need to be careful is you can press the button on time in between the strings if you want to. That's absolutely fine, the game will let you do that, but you'll be punished in the just timing. So when I first started playing, I used to press Y on the offbeat in between the heavy strikes, and if you do that, you will be penalised. So I got lucky there with 86% timing. My timing wasn't too bad, but it's very easy to get that to drop if you start pressing it at the wrong time. So I do not recommend pressing the beat on each hit of the meter, because it's just going to put a bad habit, and then when you up the difficulty and the timing becomes stricter, you will essentially just be punishing yourself and hurting your own score. But one of the areas where you can practice this, getting a little sharper, a bit more consistent, is in between fights. This game has a surprising amount of adventuring, jumping, exploring, and breaking things. So in this moment, every time you do anything on the beat, you will be rewarded for it with the feedback. And you can use this to get into rhythm of when your hits should land, when your dodges should land. You can experiment in as many ways as you want to get comfortable with it. And then when the fight starts, hopefully, because you're a bit more familiar with what you're doing, it will then translate into your engagements too. And then steadily, as the game progresses, you're going to get more tools, you're going to get more choices, you're going to get more options, but it's also going to lead to more option paralysis and more confusion. But if you keep playing and you keep putting it in there, you will get to a point where you get really comfortable with everything that's going on, and then you can start figuring out the scoring and start figuring out where the high-level play is. And right now, this game is available on Game Pass if you have that service. It is also available for half price. And there's a lot of people that have been mocking it because apparently it's only 6 hours long. Which, if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. This game is not 6 hours long, ladies and gentlemen. There are 12 chapters, and it took me about 12 hours to beat it. And I was playing on hard from the beginning, and I probably was better than most people who started the game. Mostly because I was forged in Guitar Hero and Devil May Cry. And I still couldn't beat it that quickly because it's a lengthy game with a story I was interested in watching and experiencing. And it was challenging too. So if you're playing this or you're looking at this and you'll be like, I don't really want to play a game if it's that short, don't worry about that, guys. This is meant to be replayed. I've got about 30 hours on this game now. I've beaten hard, I've beaten very hard, and now I'm going through Rhythmn Master. So there's definitely gameplay here. It has a Rhythm Tower mode, which is a little bit like the Bloody Palace. It has lots to collect, it has lots of the achievement and challenges to work towards. There's a lot of stuff to buy, there's a lot of cosmetics to buy. This is a fully fledged game. Do not be afraid by the ignorance of people who measure the value on a video game by its cock size. There's just no joy and no love and no mastery in that thought. Because if we were going to condemn a game that can be beaten in under an hour, Dark Souls is a bad game, Metal Gear Solid is a bad game, insert your favourite game, it's bad. You know, it's just a terrible metric system. And this right here, if this had came out last year, guys, it would have been my game of the year. This single-handedly saved January for me, and I am overjoyed with it. I'm going to be playing it for the rest of the year. I think it's phenomenal, and I think if you like the look of it, you'll like it too. But be under no illusion, guys. It's colourful, it looks all cartoony. This game is hard. This game is not afraid to destroy you, and it does not care if you can't keep up. And it's not as hard as it could be, because one of the things you'll notice when you go between difficulties is that the enemies don't get too aggressive. But it's because there's a lot to be thinking about. There's a lot happening with the rhythm. So they all kind of pacify a little bit, then they attack, they pacify a little, then they attack, and even the bosses are the same except for maybe Kale. So if they wanted to, they could definitely up the aggression. And I wouldn't mind, personally, but that's just because I like it when it gets really stupid. And then we have the laser moment. So every so often, the game will throw some gimmicky moments at you, and this one is a nice rhythmic laser, like, torture device. Even though I think it's meant to be some kind of construction device, or in some kind of factory. And if you want to completely avoid this, guys, if you double jump, and you keep pressing a single attack button as you recover, you will do a repeated starting move of your aerial combo, and it gives you ridiculous airtime. And you can just high profile that entire sequence if you want to. But this is going to give us our ability for special attacks. Special attacks are when you press both buttons in at the same time, both analogs, and they can only be done when you have your reverb bar, which is gained by acquiring batteries. The special attacks are pretty good and pretty strong, and they do give you invincibility, so you can use them as an opportunity to block a move instead of eating it, which is really handy. But something to watch out for is the activation on them is a little bit spotty. Sometimes they come out perfectly, sometimes they don't. So do not rely on them to save your ass, because they might fail you. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate pressing two analogs in. And on PC, you seemingly can't rebind it to anything meaningful, because it seems to separate the analog presses per super, and I don't really know what that's about. But hopefully I'll be able to get back to you with more information when I figure out how to make that work, because I cannot stand pressing analogs, especially PlayStation 3 analogs, which is what I'm playing on. But here is one of the new enemies. It's introduced an enemy with a gun. The gun enemies, if you know their tells and you've got good timing, you can just parry or dodge them when you're fighting someone else, but it behooves you to go after this monster and destroy it quickly, because if you don't, they're just going to peck you from a distance like snipers. And right now, I'm having a really hard time with this because I do not have my chain. And the chain is the thing that pulls you to the enemies. You might notice that Chai's movement is incredibly slow. This is one of the slowest characters in an action game I've ever played, but all you have to do, guys, is use your chain. The chain covers the distance, it gets rid of the problem that is your mobility. It does open up some new problems though, because the soft aim assist on it, the lock-on, is a little bit spotty. But at this moment in time, we don't really have much, so a couple of combos that you can experiment with. You can do the standard X or square string, even though I shouldn't say square because it's not on PlayStation, sadly. So the standard X string is a really, really good one for learning your timings. The standard 3 Ys is a really good one as well for just doing some heavy damage and some knockback. I like to do things like YXX and XYY. Some of them will work, some of them might not. That's pretty much all I'm pressing at the moment, guys. And the first moves that I'm going to be buying, I'm going to be buying the move in midair, which is XY, wait, XY, and I'm going to use that just so I can get some extra height so that enemies can't hit me out of the air while I'm comboing for some safety. I'm also going to be getting the move where you do YXY, because the come down on that does a lot of damage and it can be really good at hitting multiple enemies. And then I'm going to be getting the move where you do XY mash Y, which goes into like the million stabs. That move there seems to be really good for damage at times. So those are the ones I'm going to be going for immediately. But my real priority will be when we get Peppermint. So when we get Peppermint, I'm going to buy her ability so that she can do her synchronicity attack with me, where you press the assist button at the end of the combo on the beat hit. We're going to get those in really quick. I'm also going to be upgrading her gun to break shields, because the assists, your friends in this game, are the only way to go through armor and to go through electric shields. And this game loves to use them, guys, so you want to go through them as swiftly as you possibly can. And I'm going to be buying those pretty quickly. I'm also tempted to buy another outfit, but you don't get that until you unlock Cinnamon. And I don't remember when you unlock Cinnamon, because I've been playing on a build that has everything, obviously. But coming down here on the conveyor, you get one of the first light bulbs, the electric reverb cores. There might be others that I've missed. I don't know where everything is, guys, and if you watch this, you will not find everything. However, hopefully I will be able to show you, some things to think about and give you some strategies that can get you through the game. And the first level on Rhythmn Master, there's only one difficult sequence, really, and it's the boss. And the boss is difficult because if you don't immediately start hitting him, you just die. And I died there like 8 times because I didn't actually notice what was going on. I kept thinking he was hitting me with some kind of lingering hitbox. He was not. It was just my rank went to D, it decayed, and you fall over and die as if something's killed you. But here is the first of the QTEs to activate a switch. This is something you're going to do a lot in this game, guys, so you need to get that timing down. You need to be aware that it's going to move around the screen a little bit like some of the Yakuza minigames. And if you're good at it, you'll be okay. If you're not, you'll be quite frustrated. There are 2 sequences like this in the game that turn up additionally. One of them is a musical sheet rhythm game, which can be kind of difficult because it's horizontally scrolling and it can bug your eye out. And then there's another one which involves parrying, which is a sequence of parries that you do, and it happens a lot. The parrying, at first, feels kind of brutal and it feels kind of awkward and it feels like a bit much, but trust me, the more you play, guys, the easier it gets, and you'll be doing it second nature, no problem. I did notice, though, some reviewers were saying that the parrying wasn't too good, and I think that this is going to be something you're going to hear a lot here, guys, because the parrying in this game is quite tight, all considered. However, it's on the beat. So if you know where the beat is, you know the timing, and it makes it a lot easier. So as much as it is a bit more of a punishing timing window than some modern games, if you follow the beat, you'll get the parry. And this enemy, the baboon, I would parry him all day, but I don't have it, so instead I have to dodge. And this guy is one of the more armoured enemies, and what you want to do here is you want to hit him with your big moves. As soon as you break him, and his life bar turns red, it means he can be juggled. So whenever you break an enemy, guys, no matter how big they are, and they have that red HP bar, juggle them into the air. You can do that by dashing towards them and pressing Y. BY is what I do. And it will knock them into the air, and then you can do a nice aerial rave combo. And it's going to be a lifesaver, because usually when you're in the air, you cannot be hit by almost anything other than people who shoot you. And that's going to be the way that we're going to isolate ourselves away from damage. We're going to break an enemy, we're going to launch them, we're going to signal them out, we're going to destroy them, and then we're going to chain whatever we've just done to the next opponent. And the only time that's going to change is when there's anything unique that needs to die, or if there's anything ranged, because when the ranged guys are in the fights, guys, you need to prioritize them. If you do not attack ranged enemies, they're going to cause chaos. And they're not hard to dodge, it's just in the chaos of the game, you're gonna make mistakes like I just did then. I'm leaving these in, by the way, guys, because I want you to know that, yes, it happens to me too. I fall off in this game more than I lose in fighting. And it's just because the platforming has some demands, you know, and it's very easy to just make a simple mistake. I could edit those out, and it'd make maybe a more cohesive video, but I want to show you where the damage comes from, you know. When you fall off, you take a chunk of damage. And that's what I did. So there we go. But I love this first level. I love the aesthetic of this game, and I love the aesthetic of this level. I love the water, I love the colours. I love how it looks a little bit like Futurama, you know, it's got this wonderful Sunset Overdrive, crazy colourful world going on. It's got the Jet Set radio with some of the motifs. Like, everything about it is just phenomenal. And there we go. The guy with the gun shoots me. Did you see that? Apparently I didn't notice him at the time. I was too focused on what I was doing, and now I need to kill these guys. So, standard robots can be immediately launched. You don't need to stun them. Every enemy in this room right now can be knocked into the air, and if you look on the score on the right hand side, when you knock them into the air, you get a 1.5x bonus on your style. So you want to do this for points. You want to do this to get you the extra bolts to help you buy things in the shop. But you need to kill him first. I don't know all the names, sadly, guys, because they're kind of confusing. They're like puns with like serial numbers. But just know that if it has a gun and a laser, it needs to die. And you have more than enough time to go towards them and take them out. And the dodge in this game, you can only dodge once, but if you dodge on beat, you can dodge 3 times like Bayonetta. But here's the baboon with 2 guys with guns. I'm going to focus on the baboon, even though I should go for the gun guys. And it's just because I want to use my super on him. And I'm going to get him as close to breaking as I can while watching those other enemies. And I might launch these dudes now because I'm a mile away. There we go. And he hit me, see that? That's the danger when you don't have the ability to put them higher. Certain moves will catch you, so we're going to focus on this guy now. I'm going to beat him into oblivion, come down with the helm splitter, and then go into the super. And now there's just 1v1. You might have noticed there, guys, that there was a cutscene of Chai with 808. That signifies that there's more than one wave in a fight, and it instances the next wave. Timing was shit, score was shit, so we don't get a good grade, but it's all good. Don't worry about the grades yet, guys, there's no reason to. Grade can come later. We're definitely going to do more with this game. I'm absolutely excited to go through, but at the moment I don't know a good way of preserving score. Because when you die, even if you go back to the menu and you load back in, it still banks your death. It's a little bit like Metal Gear Rising for that. So I got S stars on every level, and then I got to the end, and because I died a few times, it gave me like a B. which is really sad, but I'd rather it be harder rather than easier because it means it's going to really give you something to strive for. But the game has no restart checkpoint or restart encounter, so you're going to be quitting when you take damage almost immediately, going back to the menu, going back on the sofa, going back into the game, and I just think that's too many barriers to entry for a game that wants you to replay it for score. It's not 2001 anymore, you know? Kamiya did that because he came from shmups, and when you fuck up in a shmup, you play the whole game from the start. It's like a speedrun. Nobody wants to do that except for speedrunners, and they're already fucking doing that, so leave it to them, you know? I want to be able to get hit, make a mistake, and restart immediately. I want to get back into the fight. I don't want the hard part of rank running a game be figuring out how to get back in the game quickly and not getting annoyed. Because I adore this game, but there's some quality of life issues with it that I would love to see changes to. And I don't know if this game will get any support whatsoever post-launch. But I think I'm going to contact as many people as I can that were affiliated with the game to try and see if I can get some answers from some people, because I love the game and I want to see what's going to come next. And I want to talk to the guy that made it, because I'm really interested in what his influences were. But this is quite hard, this guys. You're going to see a very aggressive playstyle here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on being really close to the boss and whacking him in the face. And at the time, I thought I was getting glitched into a kill box, but I wasn't. My grade was decaying to a D and I was dying, but it felt like I was getting hit by nothing and I didn't understand it. And then I realised, I was like, oh my god, I've just played like a lunatic because I thought the game was bugging out when in reality it was me being bad. But you can high profile a lot of these moves just by attacking him in the face. You're supposed to attack his hands, it seems like, but you don't have to. And I usually parry this boss into oblivion, but I don't have the parry, so instead, I'm just going to jump up as best I can, jump all of his moves, and then try and whack him in the mouth again. And be careful in this room, guys, you can fall off this surface. I don't know why you can fall off, I think it's a really strange idea to not give it a boundary, but that's what they decided to do, so that's what we have to deal with. The bosses in the game, believe it or not, are the easiest part of the game, because they all have pretty good checkpoints. So this boss has 2 checkpoints, you take 2 bars off, then you get a checkpoint, then you take 2 bars off. And the phases are all pretty much the same. If you jump towards him, you can whack him in the mouth again, and just keep on hitting his mask and his face, and right there, if you dodge when he comes down with the hammer blow, you can dodge in midair and you won't take any damage, and then you just proceed to beat him up like this. And if you stay up here, almost nothing can hit you but the slams. And just then, I used the special move to iframe through his hit. If you need a frame of reference, guys, if it's not making sense, it's just like using Devil Trigger in Devil May Cry 4. When an attack's coming in, you activate Devil Trigger, you get those iframes, boom, it's a free dodge. Same thing with the super. And now we get serious mode, and some wonderful artwork here. Beautiful still coming up, look at that. And then on this phase, he just adds a couple of missiles and a few extra alternatives to his moves. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get close to him and we're going to whack him in the face as much as we can. Do not stay near this or you'll get electrocuted unless you iframe through it. I don't know all the timing on this boss just yet, guys, because I've only fought him 3 times. But I'm definitely going to learn a lot more about him when I come back. When I come back to doing like best rank and no damage and stuff. Just keep on wailing on him. Do not go towards him on that move. As you just saw, all I'm doing is getting hit. There's no reason. And be careful of his hands as well. In this phase, when he slams the hand on the ground, it now has a delayed shockwave. So if you try to punish it too quickly, you'll just trade with it. There's the first arm. I love that motif. It looks so good. He always comes back up and swipes at you. So be careful of that. And you'll notice we've cracked half of his mask now, so he only has half a mask. Keep hitting him in the face. Watch out for the lasers. He does 2 barrages of lasers. You can jump both of them. And just whack his hands a bit. It's probably a good idea here to do more Y combos than I'm doing. But at this moment in time, I'm only really bothered about trying not to die to this imaginary hitbox that I didn't realise was the decaying rank. And look at my rank going down. One thing that can make this easier, guys, if you're struggling with it just for trophy purposes, there's a chip in this game that increases your style by a larger amount on the meter. So if you can't keep the style up and you're dying, and you have no interest in like learning the game, bang that one on, and hopefully it'll make it a bit easier for you to survive. Because if you're playing for survival, and you're not quite there yet, you need everything you can to help. But that's the end of the boss, guys. The only thing left to do now is beat him in the face with the flying V. So thank you for watching, and you take care now.